encouraging men at our best to open themselves up and talk, but it's not always easy. It's not always easy to find the right person to talk to. It really, really isn't, and it takes a significant amount of courage to tell someone you're having a tough day and that you're having a tough moment. And you, as a father, understanding like when your babies were able to express that, like what that meant to just have that out, that they had to hold that in, they'd be just as damaged or potentially as damaged as what some of these young men and some of these young boys are as they're walking around too, because it takes a significant amount of courage to open up and talk about things, and hopefully that the person you're speaking to receives it well and gives you an ear and gives you their attention if they have the time to do it. And sometimes, like with children, like there is no time and they don't know time. It's like right now I don't feel well, so here it is. And when you look at them as an infant, you realize you know, especially when it's your kid, you're like, okay, I got to attend to this now, depending on the severity of the tantrum or what's going on. So you deal with it now because it's blowing up and you got to address it. Men, on the other hand, if they did the same approach, it wouldn't be received well because the idea is you're an adult, you should have your emotional and your faculties all together. And a lot of men do not. They didn't have that when they were younger. They didn't have that through their adolescence. They didn't have it through adulthood as well, as they're still going through adulthood. It never came. It never developed. They never had an environment where they could express themselves, even when they were younger. So to ask someone to express that same courage as a child would, as to do it as a man now, it's not a fair expectation to have happen, and it often doesn't happen when you don't have those abilities, or you haven't been taught or had the environment to where it was welcomed. It's a really difficult space to be in, and as much as we want to encourage men and young boys to express themselves and talk about these things that when they're having tough days, it's a level of vulnerability that is extremely unsettling and requires a lot of courage and confidence to do something like that. Oftentimes, and we've dealt with young boys here who have said like they don't ever want to say anything, especially here because we have so much with boxing and MMA, and there's an aggressiveness and there's a toughness to it that needs to be a part of this as well. Like that's just this environment. It has to be a part of that, especially if you're competing. You got to have an element about that. This isn't a sport for everyone. This isn't an activity for everybody. And if you're going to compete, if you're going to practice it as far as just like fitness, self-defense, those types of things, you can get away with a little bit not being as aggressive. But as it pertains to here, a lot of young boys and young men come in there and they're having tough times, and because of the environment, they don't feel comfortable saying those things because they don't want to seem weak. And then oftentimes when we get them to actually speak, they express that. Like, I never want to say these things because I don't want to come off as weak. I don't want to come off as soft. And as much as we try to tell them, like, you won't, if you talk to us and you speak to us and let us know you're not having a good day, so we, and then at least know what we can do going forward, or at least in the moment say, hey, what's going on, just to hear you. Even then, it still takes a significant amount of courage, and it takes a significant amount of vulnerability that if you didn't grow up with me, if you don't know me personally, you don't know if I'm going to handle that well. So you want to approach that with the utmost sympathy and understanding that someone who's going through potentially a dark situation or a dark time is also having a tough time speaking on it, because it's not easy. It's not an easy thing to do, no matter how much you read about it, no matter how many doctors you hear telling men to express it. When you're actually in a real world, real life setting, to be able to be that vulnerable to another person who isn't, someone you grew up with, or who you may potentially not be close to, but you need to let them know, it's not a very easy thing to do. But as a parent now, and seeing my young boy and what he's going through, and like in the moment, hey, I'm not doing well, and just being like, I don't care who's around, I don't care who, like, what the setting is, I'm gonna let you have it and let you know I'm not doing well in the moment, and whatever it may be, small, big or small, often small. Now, but big to them, and same thing, big to someone else might be someone else's small. When you see the courage in what you little ones do to be able to just explode that out, and then they feel a little bit better, depending on, they'll feel better, especially my child is, being understanding how to handle them and hear them out and say, okay, this is a moment, and just being able to console them. You wish men and young boys would be able to kind of do the same thing, and they are. But if you don't have the right environment and you don't know that environment, it's really, really a tough thing to do. So all we can keep doing is encouraging young boys, young men, express how you're feeling, try to find the right setting. This will be the right setting, but you got to find the right time. Make time. Sometimes it's convenient, sometimes it won't. Sometimes you got to let someone hear it, but understand if it's not the right time and you want that person to hear you, you may need to wait 5 minutes. You may need to wait a day. You may need to wait a week. And unfortunately, circumstances, sometimes there is no right time. But if you got to let it out, try to let it out in a productive way that someone can receive you well and understand that we understand the courage and vulnerability it takes to speak on those things, and we do not take that lightly. And if you can trust us, and I hope you do, and if you feel comfortable, you can let us know that if things are not going well and that you're having a tough moment or a tough time, tough week, whatever it may be. Maybe you just need an ear at that moment. Maybe we can point you in the direction of someone who has a more skilled expertise of dealing with that. But if it's just an ear, and oftentimes it is like your little ones, it's just they just need a moment just to get themselves right again and just be able to express themselves. Sometimes a lot of men just need a moment just to express themselves. They don't need to be psychoanalyzed. They just need a moment just to say, hey, I'm not doing well, and just understanding that vulnerability as you're the person, if you're the recipient, to understand the level of confidence and the level of courage it took for them to be able to express that, speak to you, reach out to you, and approach you, and just understand it like it's not an easy feat, and you want to welcome that confidence and the strength it takes to do that, to encourage them to do so when they're not doing well.